This is a topic that is obviously near and dear to Malena's heart, but mine as well. It is such an important training issue that we all hear about on a regular basis. But it's also interesting from a business perspective, so that's the perspective I'll be bringing you today. If you stop to think about it, when you're talking about separation anxiety protocols, they're fairly straightforward. As a trainer, you need to understand how to gradually increase absences, the duration of absences. You need to have a really good handle on classical conditioning. You need to be able to read body language and see those subtle signs that dogs give us. Those are all skills that dog trainers use every day. There's no magic there. You guys know how to do this stuff. So why, when I talk to you, do you tell me I don't like separation anxiety or I won't even take separation anxiety cases? That is something I hear all across the country, that this is not an issue that trainers like to work with. And yet there are plenty of cases out there. For those who are taking separation anxiety, their phone is ringing off the hook. There are no shortages of cases. And I know that as trainers, you are all interested in growing your business. I talk to you every day, so getting more business and getting more clients is always a concern. So why aren't we doing this stuff?
Thank you, everybody. It's so great to see a room full of smiling faces wanting to hear about separation anxiety. I know probably better than anybody else what an incredible aversion a lot of trainers have towards separation anxiety because everyone's referring to me. It is my passion, and people laugh at me when I say that. Separation anxiety is absolutely, unequivocally my passion. I mean, I eat this stuff for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I love it. And everyone says, you are bonkers, woman. You are truly bonkers. And it's funny because I think I have a very different view of separation anxiety than most trainers. First of all, I know something that maybe most of you don't know. It is fixable. And most of you don't believe that, okay? And hopefully by the end of this weekend, you will at least start to believe that. The other thing that I do know that most of you don't believe, and hopefully you will start to believe by the end of this weekend, is these clients are just unfathomably committed to their dogs, and they will do the things that you guys really don't believe that they will do, okay? So when we talk about suspending absences, when we talk about doing, protocols on an almost daily basis, they're all in. They are all in, okay? When we talk about spending the kind of money to, use a pet sitter or a daycare or a dog walker regularly, as well as paying your fees, not a problem. They're up for it, okay? So we're going to talk about all these principles and protocols and needs for client support and so forth. But just trust me on this. These cases are so much more doable than most people ever would imagine. 17% of the dogs or more in the United States alone suffer from separation anxiety. That's a big number. And I can't do that all on myself, guys, okay? I can't take all those. So let's all get on board and start treating these cases.
Separation anxiety doesn't have to mean endless calls that you don't get paid for, or emails in the middle of the night, or clients giving up before work gets done, as Malena said. You can be successful with these cases. You also can keep control of the business at the same time. The key is in how you structure your work, and so that's what we're going to talk about next. When you're working with separation anxiety cases, parts of it will look very familiar, particularly if you've done behavior case work before, but some pieces are a little bit different. You're still going to have an initial consultation, as Malena was talking about, where you're taking a history, you're doing some assessment on the severity of the problem, and you're possibly beginning some initial training steps in that initial consult. The weekly support is where things get different. You will still be doing some training steps, giving them their next training steps. But rather than going into their home like we do with most behavior cases, if you stop to think about it, much of separation anxiety is just figuring out what is the next duration of the absence, or what does that next absence look like. I'm not sure it makes a lot of sense for you to go over to the house and then walk out the front door with them while they practice, right? You don't have to be there for these cases. And so your support is a little bit different. Instead of weekly physical check-ins, you're going to be checking in with them either through a video conference call or possibly having them send you video, as opposed to just going and seeing them all the time, particularly as you get farther and farther into the training process. By week 8, you don't need to go to their house anymore, right? And then with these cases, phone and email support, as I mentioned earlier, this is going to be even more key. They're going to need more of it. They're going to need you to cheerlead them on, to tell them they're doing a good job, to point out when they're having success, even when it's really small and hard for the clients to see.
I don't want you guys to be scared. No scariness. But we are going to talk about the technology piece. And it's really an important piece of separation anxiety because, well, let me put it this way. People are often very surprised at the amount of clients that I have and the fact that I have never met any of them in person. I have clients in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, and all over the country. And as you can imagine, I don't meet any of those unless they're going to pay for me to fly there. So technology is a really key piece in talking about separation anxiety. And obviously, many of you, if not most of you, are going to take the clients that are in your immediate area. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. And there's a reason why I want you to be knowledgeable about some of the technology, because even those clients that you will take that are 5 minutes away from you, as those clients that I take that are 5 minutes away from me, I don't necessarily meet them in person, certainly not necessarily past the first consult, okay? At this point in time, you are watching the threshold. And what I want you to remember is that it is, as we mentioned this morning, we are watching the trend in the body language, right? When we're watching the trend as to what it's going, because we're watching often enough that if we start to see that the trend is essentially going in one direction or the other, you know, hopefully in the right direction, but that the trend, in other words, is okay, on average, we are getting relaxation around the 3-minute mark. But sometimes it's 2.5, sometimes it's 3:05, you know, so we're like, all right, we got that threshold is somewhere around 2 minutes and, you know, 50 seconds. We're gonna average it there. So we're kind of looking for the trend and where the relaxation points are, and what the trend in the body language is as well. I mean, that was a perfect point that you brought up this morning about whether the dogs are self-soothing when they're lying down or not. We can look for some of the body indicators and to figure out where that trend is headed. But essentially, at that point, once you've gotten out the front door and started to build just a little bit of duration, your goal at this point in time is building duration and folding in any additional cues, because some people will have like, well, once I'm out the door, the dog's going to hear the beep beep of the car, or they're going to hear the gravel underneath my tires, or they're going to, you know, there's other cues that and triggers that might be built in. But duration is really the biggest piece after the front door. All right, treatment plan, common roadblocks. Running out of food, I kind of already mentioned that one. We'll go over it again for a second, but obstructed view to out of view. There's a lot of dogs that have a hard time with that one, that are really sensitive, and we'll talk about how to deal with that. It's just not been working, and it's been, you know, X number of weeks. You know, well, we've heard that with pretty much every behavior out there. Confinement area versus free in the house. We've kind of touched on that. We'll touch on it again. And medication phobia.